Hello, thank you for having me. I'm Stanisław Żaryn, government plenipotentiary for the security of information space of Poland, and at the same time the Deputy Minister of Coordinator the Secret Services of Poland. I mentioned these two positions deliberately because we decided as the government to connect those two areas. On the one hand, I'm responsible for identifying and monitoring the information space and the hostile influence operation, which are based on the information activities. And on the other hand, I'm also responsible for coordinating the secret services. Why I'm talking about this? Because we find that disinformation and hostile influence operation propaganda is a matter of national security, and we find it as Poland's government as a serious threat for the whole country. I would like to share with you some basic remarks about disinformation. I would like to show you what is behind the facade of deceptive content which can be found in information space all over the world. And I would like to start with two short definitions which are important to understand what we are talking about. So first of all, NATO views disinformation as creation and deliberately created and pushed false or manipulated information which are aimed to deceive and or mislead appointed actors, targeted assets. We find that disinformation is only one of the methods used during the information warfare. That's why I would like to also say, to introduce another definition. Information warfare we see as a set of efforts using media and human resources, including agents of influence, secret services, associates, or just journalists, experts, scientists, and so on, to modify these all assets are used to modify the information environment in order to create good conditions for persuasion, decision paralysis, disinformation activities, or to overpower the perception of the object of influence. What is common for all information warfare activities is that we are dealing with created information message, which is used to control the cognitive mechanism of and behavior of attacked asset object. So we have two sides in this definition, in this area: the perpetrators and the victims, the goals and effect of planned operation and activities. That is how these two basic terms are identified by the West, but I think it is also very important for us to know how disinformation and propaganda is identified and what is their role in the Kremlin's policy. That's why I would like to show you, to describe how disinformation is used and what for is used by the Kremlin. Kremlin sees disinformation and hostile propaganda as a tool for maintaining power in Russia. They are creating the whole system of very strong censorship. They are creating, they created, especially in last years, the big information bubble in their society. They are also using this kind of methods to maintain the whole society. Of course, they are also needed to control the public minds and public emotions. They are using disinformation to create so-called Russian mindset, which has some very long history. So they are also using it as the method to conduct internal and external policy. It is important method to achieve some political goals on the Russian markets and the international arena. What we see, especially in the last decades, that hostile influence operations, disinformation, is also method of attack and fight with other entities, especially those who were appointed as an enemy. The whole Western Bloc is one of the main enemies appointed by the Kremlin, and it is based on official documents. I will say, I will show you what kind in just few minutes. So we have to understand that the lies, because the whole deceptive activities are based on lies, is a method. Lies are a method of operation in internal and external politics and environment. And to show you how important it is in our opinion, I would like to tell you one specific news. In first part of 2022, Russia paid or spent almost $300 million for propaganda and disinformation activities in this 6 months directly from the presidential budget. Russia spent over $60 million to propaganda and disinformation efforts. That is quite obvious for us that Russian state finds this kind of activities as a crucial for stability and for their current state shape. Who is engaged for in these activities? As I said, it is basic and crucial for the whole state. That's why everyone in Russia can be involved or engaged or tasked to conduct some information operation and hostile influence operations. Every institution has some role to play in those activities. We see that Russia has created the whole network of institutions which are engaged in those activities. The most important entity is the Russian presidential administration, with its head, Mr. Gromov, who is some kind of mastermind of these activities. We know that that the main propagandists are tasked directly by the Russian presidential administration, who is appointing them, for example, what kind of areas should be exploited to conduct specific operations in info warfare. Those institutions are appointed to show you that the whole network created by the Kremlin includes the whole state, what is also important. I would like to focus on typical Russian entities, NGOs. This is government, non-government organization. Those are organizations that seem to be typical NGOs, but in fact they are controlled by the government, and they have also very important role to play because they are quite effective in legitimization of Russian state activities, because they this organization seem to be not linked to government. Russian use the whole network of promoting lies, carrying out information activities, and of course it's not the coincidence when and what kind of message appeared in public space. Every part of or every member of this workers of these institutions can be tasked in appropriate moment. We find that this whole network is also actively engaged in information attacks against Poland. I would like to present you the current line of narratives that are being used against Poland. We see that Poland in last years has become more and more important targets for Russian propaganda. We can see some breaking points in last years, which are important to understand how and why Russia step up its efforts against Poland. First breaking point was 2014, the first phase of war against Ukraine. It is also this moment when Poland engaged in this situation and started to help Ukrainian counterparts. And it is also the first sign of more active information warfare activities against Poland. The second breaking point was 2016, the very important summit of NATO in Warsaw, and this decision for us crucial, and to deploy Allied troops on Poland's soil. It was very fast recognized by Russians as a threat for their interest in the whole region, and we see very clear that it was also this year when Russia started to fight against us in the information warfare activities more often. And of course the last breaking point was the last year, 2021. The first stage of this increased efforts was our problems and hybrid operation on our border with Belarus. And the next, of course, one moment, it was the February 2022, when we see that Russia has started very actively attacked Poland. Currently, the most important areas exploited by Russians are the operation targeting the Poland and Ukrainian relations, and on the both fields, the state relations and the society relations, we see that Russia is trying to stir up tensions between people of Poland and Ukraine. Second important message from Russia is the attempt at at influencing the perception of Russia's war against Ukraine. Russia is trying also to blur the real picture of this war also in Poland. We see the attempt to manipulate the image of Russia, and they are trying to avoid the appearance of a perpetrator, as they did many times in history as well. We see the attempts to intimidate the society in Poland. We see also further attacks on Poland's US relations, which are very important targets for Russia for many years. We see also the revisionism of and in the history area. Russia is using this against Poland for many years, and we see also the campaign to smear the Poland's image on international arena. What is important? We see that Russians are very actively monitoring the Poland's public debate. They find and they can appoint some threats, some opinions that are in line with their activities. They use it, and they are trying to keep pushing such activities, such opinions for their own purpose. We see that Russian intelligence, Russian secret services are also the very important part of these activities against the West. The main three institutions, FSB, GRU, and SVR, they are very deeply engaged in hostile influence operations. They are using its own capabilities. They are pushing or they are trying to push their own and the lies of Kremlin against Poland as well and other countries. And what is very important, they are also linked to groups of hackers which are controlled by the Russian state. They are tasking them. They are using cyberspace also to conduct some disinformation activities. Of course, the whole three institutions are not only these structures, because we are talking about Russia, a country which is totalitarian regime, and those institutions are also very important because they are all over they are everywhere in other public institutions in Russia. They can force anyone, any official, any important influential person in Russia to start doing what they need, what have to be done in this information warfare efforts. What are very important for us is that the Russian secret services are also using disinformation and information warfare, for example, to collect data about attacked societies. They are identifying who is responding in what way on disinformation activities. They are also identifying those groups or those individuals who are responding in a good way for the attackers, and the data collected during such information campaigns can be used in further operation against attacked countries. What is very important, of course, every operation, information operation against attacked countries is also a test of procedures, a test of society, is also a test of some groups that are linked or are pro-Russian in different societies. So these are secret services who are responsible for collecting data and building the bigger picture of attacked country and society. Russia is using diverse kinds of methods. It's not only the typical disinformation, but also the influence operation, the hack and leak activities, disinformation and deception. It is targeted first of all to decision makers, and we have also the typical hostile inspiration to attack some society or the country. And what we see is that the critical for the effectiveness of such activities are the three factors. First of all, to identify, to map, to identify the sensitive or the place of weakness of the potential victim. The actions have to be planned and conducted in a long-term manner. And the second important factor is very high budget. We see that Russia possesses all three things, and that's why Russia is a serious threat and really and is able to conduct such kind of operation for a long time. And what is also important for us as the counterintelligence services and the institutions responsible for the national security is that Russia is using information operations and is increasing its activities during the elections, during the plebiscites, and during the campaign. It is obvious for us that Russia uses disinformation, propaganda, to affect the decision makers, in this case the voters, so the whole society, the whole nation. And Russia wants to have some impact and influence on in these critical moments for the future of the whole society and country. What is also important for us to understand is that there is no coincidence that Russia uses lies. It is state-sanctioned, state-sponsored activities, and it is described in two basic documents, and third document, perhaps even more important, but not official. So Russia's war doctrine and Russia's information security doctrine appointed that information warfare, disinformation, propaganda, hostile influence operations are in Russia typical method of achieving political goals. It's not or extraordinary for Russia to conduct disinformation operation. It's just typical tool for the Kremlin, and it is clearly appointed in those two doctrines. The third one, the Gerasimov doctrine, is, I think, quite well-known doctrine which discuss the typical hybrid operation and hybrid warfare methods, which is being used by Russia currently and for a long time since this doctrine was public or was written. We can see that Russia is using under threshold method to interfere the Western states or any states that can be appointed by Russia as enemy. So we are dealing with a systematic Russian lies sanctioned by the state, and it is very important for us to understand that Russian values are not comparable with our own on the West. Russian actions will be and are effective when the victims are are unaware. That's why awareness of a threats is a key, in my opinion, to neutralize the Russian actions, and it is very important for us to understand what we are dealing with. And I think it's very important also for us to understand that Russian information operations are very directly linked to Russian political goals, and it is just important, it is just crucial for us to be aware what Russia wanted to do, what Russia is going to do in the next future, to neutralize its disinformation efforts, because it's not only the way of destabilize societies and states, especially in the West, but it is always related to some political goals that Russia wants to achieve. Thank you very much for your attention.
Maybe I will be able to take a quick question from one of our students. They wonder what is the things you have to take into consideration when it comes to balancing the fight against information and free speech.
Yeah, thank you. Very hard question, very crucial. I think that we should understand that Russia uses freedom of speech, uses typical values which are crucial for the whole West, and they are using it against us. So it's very important for us to understand that fighting disinformation is protecting our freedom of speech, because it's not comparable freedom of speech, some kind of opinions that came from individuals who has right to own attitude to many topics for own opinion, but we are dealing with systematic message which is created and which was created by the secret services of Russia, hostile country, and those messages have to be appointed, have to be identified, and have to be countered, because those are the measures to infect our countries, to infect our opinions. They seem to be typical opinion, but behind such activities, which I wanted to describe in my speech, is Russia, very hostile, very aggressive state. We have to understand, and we have to improve our know-how to identify such activities and to fight against them. I think that fighting Russian disinformation is a way to secure our freedom of speech and to secure our right to have normal conversation in our societies.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Huge applause
Thank you
for
very much.
Mr. Stanisław Żaryn, Secretary of State and the Plenipotentiary for the Safety of Information, as well as Secret Service.